I'm here today at Sideways Motorsport. As you can see, all these awesome Nissans behind me. And that means my Stagea is in the dyno room, ready to get the run-in tune done. I'm just going to go and say hi to Christian right now and get him to explain a little bit about what we're doing today and tell us about what this run-in tune is all about and why we need to do it. Let's go check it out. So here's Christian, here's the man himself.
Excuse the voice, but the question is why do we do a run-in tune?
Yeah.
So a run-in tune essentially is we need to be able to bed the rings in the bores. Now that's a mixed opinion, I guess, whether people think a run-in is required or not. I've just found longevity-wise for a motor, I get better results, better compression results. Engine will just be a bit healthier if we just do the whole run-in process where we just ease into things. So I'm still a big advocate for let's do a run-in tune. You get more heat cycles through a run-in tune. If you're just doing it all in one hit on the dyno and you go straight for full power, like you're only usually getting 1 or 2 heat cycles maybe if you do it over a couple of days. Doing a run-in tune as well, you'll tend to get, you might do 100 Ks a day depending on how enthusiastic you are driving through the mountains and whatever else. But yeah, you get more heat cycles through too, which I think all just helps contribute to the rings bedding in a little bit better. So when your engine is built, everyone would know you get you get your block bored and honed, for example. So the hone is actually giving the bores a very slight sharp edge. And what that sharp edge does is as the rings come across it, move up and down, they actually cut into the rings, and that's what beds the rings in. So it's also why when you have a fresh motor, you want to get load on it as soon as possible to help push those rings out against that sharp edge, and it helps bed the rings in better. If you let the car things like idle around too much or you run too much vacuum, you will eventually still wear that sharp edge away. And then once that sharp edge is gone, you can't bed the rings in any further. So it's really important, the initial usually it's a very exponential graph, like the first, say, 15, 20 minutes of an engine's life will depict now the rest of its life, because if you haven't started pushing the rings out by that point, you're really going to start struggling. So yeah, usually those first few minutes are really critical to how the engine's going to behave for the rest of its life.
If you were, for example, to not do this on a dyno and you were to just go and hit the streets,
it's
and
more
then let it
anything
decelerate.
above 0 positive pressure just to push them out is a good thing.
Okay.
The downside to try and do it all on the street is you're sort of trying to tune on the fly as well as then look. Obviously you've got a passenger tuning, that's helpful. But usually the run-in tunes as well, like I tell people, like go do some mountain runs. Because especially when you're on the incline, like you're on positive pressure the whole way. It's not about putting the most amount of boost in there and all the revs. Like you don't want to put too much heat into the rings either, because too much heat's also a bit of a bad thing. But it's just about positive pressure and just continuing to push those rings out, because the more you can do that, the more they will bed in. And as long as everything's done properly, you'll get the best result then out of the motor. Another question people ask me too, like why do you only use running in oil, for example, or why don't you use full synthetic? So your semi-synthetic and your full synthetic oils have what's called friction modifiers as part of the additive packs. So when you're trying to create friction for those rings to bed in, friction modifiers is to reduce friction. It actually hinders your bedding in process. So the mineral oil doesn't have any of that. So usually what I do is I do a 3-stage process. So your first initial startup and run-in tune, I'll do on running in oil. And then we dump that. We'll have a look at the filter, cut the filter open as well. We check the oil just for any, you drain it into a completely clean container. We check for any maybe foreign metals that we don't want to see in there. You're always going to get often a little bit of alley shavings or something from the machining and stuff. That's completely fine. The main thing we're looking for in that is just any bearing flakes or bearing materials or bronze material. It's pretty distinctive if you see it. Then we'll do another filter, so we'll do a filter change, and then we put mineral oil in it. So your mineral oil is what you run for 1,000 Ks. The reason we do that again is there's no friction modifiers in mineral oil either. Over that 1,000 kilometers, you will notice a behavior change in the car. It will start picking up response. It'll start wanting to boost a little bit quicker. Again, why I'm a big advocate for doing this whole run-in tune side of things, because you will notice the difference. So the run-in tune has to be a little bit richer. Depending on what sensors, if you like wideband sensors and stuff, I can use that to keep the air-fuel ratios exactly where they need to be. But if you don't have any of that, I tune a bit richer, so then when the rings start bedding in, you start moving more air, we start getting to a, hopefully not lean, but we sort of end up in a good mixture that gets you through that 1,000 Ks, and then we retune and go over it all again.
So there you go, that's a little bit about why a run-in tune is considered necessary. And I'm really happy that the Stagea is in Christian's hands. He knows what he's talking about. He does a lot of this all day, every day. I'm happy to sort of take his advice on this matter. So having a look at the car now, this is a hub dyno, which I'm very excited about too. So the theory is that there's, it's a bit more of an accurate reading. You're not leaving things like tyre slip to chance, which can kind of affect things like horsepower readings, as well as the data that Christian is able to see on the graph and on his computer, which then affects how far he can push things. You know, if he's getting an inaccurate reading because tyres are slipping, then that's going to affect your overall performance of your vehicle. So I think a hub dyno is a much better way to go than a chassis dyno.
Handbrake off, the car's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so do you keep the back jacked up as well?
No.
Yeah, right.
It just has the complete weight on the rollers.
I guess that's how it works normally. It's on the wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do want to do is just put in the oil pressure safeties. So you've got your oil pressure set up.
Yeah. So what sort of oil pressure was it making?
It was about 100, 105 on idle when it was cold. Obviously,
Okay.
I didn't let it warm up, so
Yeah.
I don't know what it'll do. I'm assuming that it'll obviously drop a fair bit.
Yeah. Is that high? Is that normal?
It's about normal. You just got the 1540 running.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about normal, honestly. Once that warms up, it'll probably drop down to about 20.
Okay.
So if you have a look here, so this is your oil pressure versus coolant temp sensor RPM limiter. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, your oil pressure your oil pump dies, which I guess isn't an uncommon thing for an RB, but it more often than not doesn't happen. But at least if it does and your oil pressure drops, this will literally just stop the motor from running so we can save your bearings. You ideally want 10 psi of oil pressure per 1,000 RPM in an ideal world. So, especially when you're running in a fresh motor that I don't know much about, it's always good to do that, because I would rather hit one of these safeties than not realise your oil pressure is dropping a little bit if you can't keep a close eye on it, because you've got to focus on 100 other different things. So it's always good to have this in the background just as a safety for any motor. So then, as you can see, if you want to have a quick look here, so you'll see until the engine actually gets up to temperature, I won't let you rev it. That's another safety thing, because I get a few customers that just cold start and rev the crap out of it, so I won't let them do that, just try and help their motor, and I'll progressively let them rev it a little bit more as the car warms up.
Yeah, right.
But that's also then based on as long as the oil pressure's there through each temperature range.
That's awesome.
Joys of having all the cool stuff.
Oh, oil temp.
Yep, so your pressure, I just have...
Oh, there, yeah, cool.
Over there. So you have a look here, you ready?
Yep.
Jinxed me. In all fairness, I haven't touched anything with how the car starts.
Yeah.
It started first.
That's both equal parts terrifying and awesome is seeing 24 psi there.
Hey, if it gets there, it gets there.
From what I've been told, boost is really just a tool to get you to a power. You shouldn't be aiming for a certain boost, right?
What I tend to do with my tuning is, especially with RBs, everything's relative to your oil pressure. So it's about the relationship between cylinder head pressure and oil pressure. It's not so much about how much power you make. So on 98, for example, purely because of the octane rating of 98, I usually don't go above 20 pounds unless for some reason I can't control the boost, and then I'll start pulling the timing out of that sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
If you've got good oil pressure though, like I'm happy to push further, but we just need the 85 at that point.
Yeah,
I think we're doing a flex tune anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
let's get through the 98.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Let's see how we go. Yeah, so it's more about the relationship between how much boost you're running in your cylinder pressure versus your oil pressure. If you get that relationship wrong, that's where you can start causing your bearings to damage. So I've seen that in the past where you have too much boost but not enough oil pressure, you actually squat the oil wedge out on the top bearing between the rod and the crank, and you'll run your bearing. And obviously you don't want detonation either, because that also has a similar effect. And
right.
hear a noise there,
yeah,
that I start questioning is it detonation, is it something we need to look at? So,
right.
like a little faint noise in the background.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll do a test.
Just like one or two, like boom. Yeah.
So we'll look at doing a test. So we're aiming at 0. So let's just do a quick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees of timing out of that area.
Right.
And see if it still makes it.
Like now, just as you got up into that cell, and when you let off, right at the bottom, it does one as well.
Oh, you hear a 1 tick?
Yeah.
It's a VCT solenoid.
Oh. Yeah.
So once you learn what you're expecting, you know what all the different sounds are.
Yeah,
so that
right.
click you hear is the VCT solenoid engaging and disengaging.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, there was two when you got up to the 6.
So then what you do is you do tests like that, and because sometimes too it can be just another engine noise.
Yeah.
It won't have anything to do with detonation or timing.
Yep.
Then you go, okay, to that point I need to ignore that noise, and
Or is it tune related? Yeah, cool.
that's awesome.
That is so awesome to hear my car and see my car running that loudly, but my eyes are burning from the exhaust gas. And Christian's are too. His exhaust fan stopped working just the other day. So both our eyes are just killing us. It's pretty funny. He's trying to squint to see his laptop. He's doing a great job. She's revved up to about 4,500 RPM at about 10 pounds of boost. Hasn't let go yet. Fingers crossed she won't either. But yeah, so we just had a couple of little niggling things that we had to fix up along the way. Specifically, fuel base pressure was sitting just a little bit low, and that was my fault. I just didn't set that again after we put the motor back in. Coolant wasn't completely bled, sorry, not coolant, demineralized water. So the cooling system had a few air pockets in it. So after a few back-to-back runs, it was heating up to about 96 degrees. And then, you know, it was cooling back down quickly, but in Christian's opinion, that was a little bit hot. So we just bled the radiator again. And now after a few back-to-back runs, instead of being up to 96 degrees, it was sitting at 89 degrees. So less air, more water in the cooling system is always going to be a good thing. So I'm glad that he picked that up and we've sorted that out. After the fuel pressure increased to the correct base pressure of 43 pounds, then he had to go back and change some of the injector settings and fueling settings because now there's a little bit too much fuel going in. So that's what this is about. It's trial and error. Tuning is it's actually quite a scientific approach at you know, modifying a car. You know, because you're testing something, you're looking at the data, you're seeing what's wrong, what's where it should be and what's not where it should be, and then going and making adjustments and doing it again and again and again until it works the way that you're expecting. You know, my inner nerd really likes that kind of stuff, that science, that data, and seeing how, you know, one little thing here in this table affects all these other tables and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go back to the dyno room now that my eyes have stopped stinging, and we'll go see how he's going now. So alternator belt was loose because it turns out I didn't tighten any of the nuts that hold the alternator to the engine. So we've now solved that, and we're going to make sure the alternator is producing enough electricity because it was not before.
Brakes on it. That's not the first time I've done that. I just saw it moving, I was like, whew.
Hang on a sec.
Yeah, brakes. Otherwise, yeah, that goes for a nice longer. It moves in there, those things.
Yeah, I know. Is that close enough? Too close?
That'd be fine.
So Christian's still, as you can hear, he's still working away, trying to get some of the higher RPM fueling done and timing done. But unfortunately I have to leave the shop now. I've got other stuff to do today. I will check back in probably in a couple of days time when I come back to pick up the car, and I think he's going to do some cold start setup and that sort of stuff as well. So we'll pick back up then.
I've added a little bit of ignition timing just on your transient throttles, just to give it a little bit of extra pep.
Cool.
So we'll see how all that goes then, hey?
Cool.
We'll do a test drive, and well, after we do an oil change.
Yeah.
Those are off. Wait, you can put the wheels back on.
Very good.
We'll just roll out like this.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's not going anywhere.
I mean, the hub's just spinning.
We'll wait for the water drain first, and then we just gotta.
What, you can't tell anything from the couple of mils on your hand?
Nah, sorry, Cam.
I thought you were RB Jesus.
So far, it's about what you expect.
Okay.
So you get usually a pretty typical gold sheen just across the top. Let's go dump it and see what's in the bottom.
Oh,
Hopefully,
God.
Nothing we don't want to see. It's a bit nerve-wracking for you right now.
Oh, yeah, terrifying.
So this was a completely clean container, so let's pop out in the sun. Got a bit of rubber in there, or silicone maybe, plastic.
What's that from?
Something in your engine. Good news, I don't see anything I wouldn't expect to see. So it's quite common you'll see a lot of little like alley shavings. It's quite common you'll see like even those little sparkles and everything.
Yep.
See little alley shavings like that. I don't know if you can focus on that or not.
Yeah, maybe
That's
not.
all fairly common on fresh motors, usually from some machining or just wasn't able to clean everything out. So it's quite common you might see things like that even up to the first 2 or 3 oil changes. What you're really looking out for is any sort of bronzy metal. That's alley. That's cool. I think you're looking pretty good, sir. So far. But nothing in there I wouldn't expect to see.
So what was that little shaving? That little like
Another piece of alley.
no, so the long strip. So it was a piece of rubber or something. What's that?
A seal, maybe? It's part of a gasket.
Huh.
Oh, we can clean it, so you can actually have a proper look, but something inside your motor.
That's not ideal.
It's not, I doubt that would damage anything, so you're all good, but yeah,
Right.
I don't know, something. I haven't seen something like that come out of a motor before, but
Okay.
it's not something I'd be too worried about, because at the end of the day, that's not going to go through your pickup check as well. Same deal, so just completely clean container.
Yep.
And just keep an eye on it. I do that for every services, which is usually how I unfortunately give people the bad news of, hey, your motor's running some bearings. It's usually just another thing I check for when we were tuning. So remember those times I said we were tuning, you can sort of hear those few little noises, but you pull timing away and they're still there. So sometimes they can just be engine noises. Or sometimes if those noises tend to go away when I pull timing, that's when I would have called it then and been like, we need to pull it off and drain the oil and at least have a look.
Right. And you would expect to see probably some bearing material.
Possibly, yeah. So usually, if your bearings start going, obviously you get a bigger clearance around the crank with your rods. So if you've got more cylinder pressure from more timing, you start noticing that gap more, you pull it away, you won't hear it as much. So those are the sort of things you keep an eye on with the knock gears, as I was trying to show you before. Oh, your video made me nervous. Oh, that's twice now.
I literally just started recording again too. I turned it on.
All you're gonna get is poor fail. Poor fail.
3 spills.
I fucked it up 4 times with his motor while he's got the camera on. I'm like, I just can't do that.
Live streaming.
Yeah.
Live streaming, man. Yeah, no.
Shit, I better put up.
There's no pressure.
You know that. You know
I
that.
literally fucked it up 4 times. I never use a funnel.
You know that's the model that we recovered the brake fluid in, yeah?
Yeah, like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, let's go for the intro.
Did you just put your foot completely on the floor then?
Yep.
Right, okay. So it's like, I think the DPS is playing up since you're sensing it 100%.
That's actually what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
So your throttle mesh will respond when there's lots of movement.
Yeah, right, okay. Whew, sounds so nice.
It's got some very serious throttle, isn't it?
Yeah. Awesome.
You're like, I love it.
Hell yeah. Spent 3 years trying to get this car to this point without having something to show for it. That's what I have. I'm happy. Alright, so that's the run-in tune done for the Stagea. As you can see behind me, we've taken it for a little bit of a test drive, and I think overall Christian was pretty happy with most of it.
It's doing all the right things. Running procedure's done. Oil pressure looks good. AFR looks good. Everything looks good. Go do 1,000 Ks. Come back.
Send it, or
Just
do I have to
send it.
drive carefully? Yeah, okay. Cool, for 1,000 Ks, and then we'll come back for some power runs, and we'll see what the final result is. So we'll see you guys then. Cheers, bye.